play. And another foul on board. His third for setting a screen.
Because of physical play, although Jordan Taylor just got caught with a moving screen.
Pick and roll. And a foul, offensive foul coming up. Ken Valentine standing right there.
Izzo dying for a moving screen.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Moving Screen Podcast. I'm Brendan Quinn of The Athletic. Here with Dylan Burkhardt of UM Hoops. We are still in Louisville, Kentucky. Actually a beautiful morning here.
Beautiful day here.
It is. Not a beautiful day for the double beat.
Not a lot of great hoops
Goodness
for the Moving Screen
gracious.
Podcast.
Life comes at you fast, man. In the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Obviously a rough night for the boys. Michigan going down hard to Louisville. Michigan State going down. Or I'm sorry, did I get that right?
You did.
Michigan lost to Louisville. Michigan State lost to Duke. I don't know what cities I'm in. I don't know what teams I'm watching. But here we are. Quick plug. Dylan, what are you breaking down from last night's game on UM Hoops?
We're going to have a lot today looking at the offense and where things went wrong, but also the defense and where Michigan actually played pretty well, all things considered. Mm-hmm. But we also have a ton of content over the last few days that you can catch up on, so make sure to check all of that out.
Dylan was the only member of the UM beat that was at Atlantis for Michigan's 3 big wins there, so make sure if you haven't checked out his stuff from those games to do so over on The Athletic. We had all these games surrounded. I wrote about Franz Wagner last night. I got him outside the locker room, and we kind of talked about, I'm sitting there watching the second half of that game, and I'm like, damn, this dude's first 4 college games were Iowa State, UNC, and Gonzaga in a ballroom in the Bahamas in 3 games in 72 hours, and then a trip to number 1 Louisville. Those are the first 4 games. Like, that's just crazy. So we kind of talked a little bit about that, and he got into how he's just trying to find some kind of rhythm and kind of understand, I think, the tempo and just kind of how these games work and where he fits in things. So that was pretty interesting. So I kind of wrote about his growth process there. And then we have full content from our stable of writers who were at all these games. So check that out at The Athletic. But we will start here with Michigan-Louisville. We were both at the game last night, obviously. A big opportunity for Michigan, but also probably a big ask to come back from Atlantis and turn around a performance that it would take to beat Louisville on its home court. Place is rocking pretty good. How much everyone, it seems like, externally on the Twitters were very quick to point to, they don't have the legs, they're tired, I don't quite buy that in early December. I think they lost to a really good team, got outplayed, and that's okay. You can lose a game. You don't need to have a kind of default reason. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do think that it's a loss that you could kind of see coming, and it magnifies why it was so important that Michigan played so well in the Bahamas, because they weren't coming to Louisville having to steal a game or win a game.
Right.
They were playing in kind of a position where you're already feeling good about yourself in the preseason.
Right.
It was never going to be an easy game, and it's not like they lost to Stephen F. Austin.
Totally.
Here. We're talking about a road game against the number 1 team in the country. I think just the way the spot's set up, you could kind of feel a potential loss coming here, and it's not tired legs, but it's still just a tough ask, as you said.
Yeah, and on the other end, it was the opposite. Louisville hasn't played anybody, and they've heard people say over and over again that they haven't played anybody. They just got their number 1 ranking. I think everyone's kind of dying to see, is this team any good here? We're just talking about folks here, and that's kind of that's been the narrative. There was talk last night in the press conferences about Louisville players hearing what David DeJulius said about, we want the smoke or whatever the hell the line was. I have no idea. And they just latched onto it. Like whatever DeJulius said was not some I wouldn't say it was bulletin board stuff, but Louisville made it. They found a way to make it all right, well, who do these guys think they're, they just kind of turned it into a thing. So they were looking to go in there and kick Michigan's ass, and they did.
Louisville had the mindset that Michigan had last week in the Bahamas.
There you
Everyone
go.
is like, we need to prove what we're
There you
about.
go. Yeah.
We're going to go do it, and we're in a pretty good spot to do it, right? Like, at home is a great way to prove yourself, even when maybe you might get a little false magic there. But
Yeah.
it's a perfect spot, and it really set up poorly for Michigan. And then Louisville's defense is just also really, really good.
Really
Chris
good.
Mack is one of the best pack line defensive coaches in college basketball, and they were locked in.
They were. So let's talk about the first half, because that really kind of set the I don't know, the mindset of Michigan on every offensive possession was just a rock fight. I mean, they just couldn't get any room to breathe. Obviously, through the kitchen sink at Xavier Simpson, he finished the first half with 1 point, no assist. They had 7 points in the first half with like 5 minutes left. Oddly, Michigan actually found a couple baskets when Simpson left the court after he picked up his second foul with 5 minutes left in the first half. Which I guess just what do you make of what they were doing that was so effective?
So what Louisville did so well is they threw size at Simpson by hedging the ball screen, and that makes it really hard for Simpson to see passes that might be there.
Right.
And he's one of the best in the country at it, but Louisville was so locked in defensively that they did a great job stopping the action there. And then off the ball, which is really where Simpson's so effective when he finds those shooters on the wings, they helped just enough that they were able to recover and close out really effectively. And Michigan just lost its confidence to take catch-and-shoot threes and instead took 2 or 3 dribbles into an awkward pull-up jumper or a floater.
A lot of that.
Or some kind of weird... But because the defense is so compact, those drives aren't actually there.
Right. And when you talk about just having DeJulius and Brooks out there, and when teams are closing out that way, you're talking about 6-foot guards that are now dribbling into that, 18 to 12-foot area where like they can't even get off shots, and even their vision, if they want to make a kick-out pass, if they're playing length, those passes aren't there. There were just no lanes for driving, for passing, for anything.
And if you look at it, Isaiah Livers has been really good offensively, tearing up sort of traditional power forwards. That's basically what he played against every game in the Bahamas. Louisville had a 6'5", 220-pound defensive stopper on him, and that's a different ballgame. He hasn't faced that nearly as much, and so he really struggled. When Louisville played defense that way, Michigan, it really emphasizes the need to have a one-on-one scorer, right? Someone that can create their own offense. And they went to Livers quite often, and he did not really produce in that role, which is to be expected. He hasn't played in that role, but a bit of a dose of reality for him, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that Dwayne Sutton he's a dog. And like I think he played 35 minutes last night. Really didn't do too much offensively, but he made Michigan's night hell. He was just in people's shit. Yeah, big time.
Livers was what? He was 0 of 5 on 2s, 1 of 4 on 3s, and really by the time he got a clean look, he had already lost his confidence with his shot, right? He was forcing these tough shots early, and then he just never could get comfortable again, even when he did get a couple clean catch-and-shoot looks later in the half.
And like the other thing is, haven't been in Atlanta, so you probably know better, but I kind of just got the sense that also like the big possessions where they had to execute, had to make the right decisions, had to make the right play, they got buckets damn near every time, it seemed like, in Atlantis. Last night, it just wasn't the case. Like, every swing, they just didn't get the job done. The moments that really jumped out to me, and this is beside the fact of, like, if you take, Michigan's big three, what they're, like, that's basically the story of the night in terms of how they lost, is just not getting what they needed there. But the 2 moments that jumped out were late in the first half. It's a 10-point game. To get a defensive stop, you say, all right, cut it, the old get it to single digits going into halftime. That's a win. Get the ball. It goes out to Brandon Johns, drives the length of the court, goes up for what was clearly going to be a blocked layup. It gets blocked. Now he falls down. Now Louisville's got numbers going the other way. Johns gets up holding his back. He's late getting back. They draw a foul on his man, who goes to the line, hits 2 free throws. It's just this big swing. And then coming out of the 2 timeouts in the second half, when Franz Wagner, who's learning and getting used to this, but 2 huge possessions coming out of timeouts. He mishandles a cross-court pass because he's trying to drive before he even catches the ball. And then the next time he just dribbles into Warner's chest, dribbles it off his thigh and goes out of bounds. It's just like, those are times you gotta get the right play if you want to win a game like that.
Yeah, and there are other times where I think Michigan had the right play, but not the right finish. There are a couple, like, you're not going to get exactly what you want every possession.
Sure.
But there were plenty of times where Michigan got what it wanted and didn't finish. John Teskey missed quite a few shots around the rim that he made pretty consistently in the Bahamas. And
the bunnies were killers in the first half.
if you're not making those layups, you're not going to get layups every time like you might against a lesser defense, and you just have to finish those chances. The way that Louisville guards ball screens was always going to put a lot of pressure on Teskey. He was going to have to handle the ball a little bit, catch it on a slip or a short roll, hit some pick and pops, because that's what's open.
Right.
That's what they were giving you. And Teskey was just 5 of 14 inside the arc.
Yeah.
And most of his baskets were not out of ball screens. They were more straight post-ups.
Yes.
And
Over his shoulder, kind of that little baby hook. Those were 3 of their 4 baskets in the first half.
Yeah, I was going to say we could just go basket through basket through the first half, and we might still need more podcast material. But so he was so good in the Bahamas, but he just got outplayed by Enoch and Malik Williams today, or last night, and that's going to happen. I mean, it's not a bad front court. It's not like he got chewed up by a lesser team, but you're putting a lot of pressure on him. He's going to play 30-plus minutes every night, and it's still a huge drop-off to Colin Castleton. So you need him to carry you.
So, Xavier Simpson, you talked about, just the how effective Louisville was. I guess, could you put into context for folks out there, like, why a lot of what you saw last night is not replicable by many other teams?
I think it's hard to you can't just build a new defense overnight, right? A team is going to have to mostly defend how they want to defend. And when you've seen Michigan's ball screen offense get stopped in the past, it's usually against a team that A, is really good on defense, has a unique style that fits into stopping Xavier Simpson naturally. Because if you're trying to be something you're not, like Iowa's not just going to install Louisville's defense overnight. Louisville is an elite pack line defense to begin with, and that's really what makes them so good. It's that they're so drilled, that they're so consistent. It's not that they have some secret to stopping Simpson, right? Another team could try to do the same thing and just fail. Like, other people know what they want to do against Michigan's ball screens. They just don't succeed, right? And that, I think, is what it comes down to, is that Louisville is a really good defense, and that, I mean, it happens, and you're putting a lot of Michigan doesn't have a second way to score right now. If the ball screen actions are not there, what are you going to do next?
Right, it's basically a Teskey post touch.
There's no ISO threat, and that is the bigger issue, I would say.
And I feel like in mid-late January, Franz Wagner is 15 games into his college career. I feel like they will be able to find wrinkles that kind of suit what he can do, and make him, ideally, I think, if this team is going to make real waves this year, like, that probably needs to be it, no?
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah Livers also, but it's funny what you said about Franz, because I wrote something similar in my player bullets. I said he just needed some bye games and some exhibitions to get his legs and understand what's going on, and he's not going to get that until Christmas.
Yeah.
So that is a great way to look at where he's at right now. And I think you have to also point out how much Michigan trusts him, puts him on the floor all the time, dials plays up for him out of timeouts, right? Like, they clearly are trying to get something out of him that makes me think that they're pretty confident that he's going to develop into a lot more.
And a lot of it is his talent, and a lot of it is a complete lack of confidence in what's behind him. Let's be honest here, too.
Yeah.
You know?
I think he deserves some credit for just how good he is defensively off the ball. I think Michigan's defense has been a lot better since he's been in the rotation. Still had some issues one-on-one at times, but he's really smart on that end of the court, which helps.
And the thing that really jumps out to me about Franz right now is he is unafraid. Like, he is not strong by any means, but, like, he goes up for rebounds. You know, he is not passive by any means. You can tell that he played adults, right, the last couple of years. And, you know, he is in the mix. Like, now he might literally deflect off of a guy, you know, like Sutton or something like that. But, you know, he'll put his chest in there. And I feel like that makes me more confident in terms of, like, rapid progression here, right? That there is not a timidness to him.
No, he definitely...
He's talking shit. He's yelling at refs.
He's getting in the middle of everything. He is he's Mo's brother. There's no doubt about that. But Mo did not have that sort of physical edge to him early in his career.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. And maybe it's a little easier to establish that when you're a 6'9" wing instead of trying to play the 5. But I do think we should at least mention just how well Michigan played defensively.
Yeah.
To hold a team to .88 points per possession while your offense just can't score is really, really hard.
On their court.
On the road. It was Michigan's third worst offensive game in the Ken Pom era. And to be able to just shut a team down says, I think that the defense, a couple weeks ago, I wasn't sure how good this team was going to be on defense. The last 2 weeks have sort of cemented that this is going to be a legitimate top 10 defense, in my opinion. I mean, it looks the part. It makes sense when you take a step back, but it looked a little I wasn't completely convinced about the defense, and now, I don't know, I'm buying in after that performance, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. Kept them to 22 made field goals, 8 assists, right? Like, a lot of what Louisville had to get. One of the things that Louisville definitely took better advantage of, I think, in this game was, like, any time that you could get numbers in transition was such a premium in that game, because that thing was just, both teams were just locking each other in the half court. Louisville did a much better job of taking advantage of those kind of glimmers or glimpses of opportunity. Yeah,
so much of what Louisville did defensively mirrors what Michigan wants to try to do defensively. When we talk about a Michigan game where they just shut a team down, that's basically what Louisville did to Michigan. No transition, all tough twos, no three-pointers, and defend the hell out of the rim. No assisted baskets. I mean, that's
Louisville made 8 of, and the stat broadcast had him at 8 of 13 layups. Right, like they made their looks at the rim, and Michigan missed a lot of theirs.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to. I have Michigan at 33% shooting in the paint. That's not going to get it done. They didn't make jumpers, and they don't score inside. Yeah, you're just not gonna.
And the other big swing was, you know, Michigan, I thought, when Teskey was in the first 10 minutes of the game, and both teams were just throwing up bricks all over the place. You know, Michigan really did a solid job on the defensive glass with Teskey. Then he needed a breather. They took him out. I think it was 4 straight possessions of offensive rebounds by Louisville, and that was really when the game started kind of trending toward Louisville. No?
Yeah, Michigan's bench really good in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Not so great on the road at Louisville. I think that's a little bit to be expected.
Right. But like a drop off in scoring, something like that is one thing, but like to just have that drop off where Teskey leaves the court and the other team is just like, all right, we're just going to go destroy the offensive glass. That's not a good thing.
No, it was not a great game for Colin.
No.
Not a great game for Brandon.
Do we want to talk about Brandon?
You've already mentioned Brandon a little bit. I want to talk about that Louisville's lineup and playing 2 big wings really took Michigan out of the three-point guard look. They didn't get to that much at all. It was usually Dave or Eli on the court. And that, I think, maybe took a little bit out of the punch that Dave got from DeJulius. He was one of the last guys in off the bench.
Yeah.
So I don't know that could be something to track against bigger teams moving forward, that Michigan might not quite be as comfortable going to that. But yeah, really it comes down to who's going to be the ISO guy for this team when everything else breaks down.
Yeah, it looked like they wanted it to be Livers last night, but he was playing a guy who's probably going to be all defensive ACC. I would imagine. I mean, I don't know who the hell's good defenders in the ACC, but I can't imagine there's many better dudes than that guy. I mean, Livers going 1 for 9 is. I ain't going to get it done in a game where you got to get to fucking 60 to win. Like, that just can't happen.
But how many pack line defenses have we seen a Michigan wing just go in and go 2 for 13, right? Mm-hmm. It happens. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see how Livers grows, because he showed a lot of flashes of getting to the rim, doing all that stuff.
Right.
He's a perfect undersized 4, because he can exploit other 4s. I'm not sure he's a legitimate 3 right now when he's getting that focal point treatment.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to talk about Brandon Johns, because that's what people want to talk about.
Let's talk about Brandon Johns.
15 minutes, rough 15 minutes last night for him. And the big question right now is, if, when, how does the, whatever cliche you want to use, the lights come on, or, him turn the corner, or whatever it may be. I don't know. I see a lot of people kind of question his personality, and, is there a resolve there, whatever your word you want to use. I don't question Brandon's talent, raw talent. It looks like there still needs a lot of refinement, better decision making, a lot more confidence. I think in the best case scenario for Brandon Johns is DJ Wilson. DJ was a guy who looked completely lost, and he had a very similar kind of personality of, just sometimes kind of came off as being aloof or whatever, But DJ's talent was apparent all the time, and it just happened one day, right? I don't know when that happens for Brandon Johns. I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility still, even this year, but something needs to kind of get injected there.
Yeah, he just needs to make like if you're going to grade everything on like a -2 to +2 every possession, he needs a lot more +1/2, +1/2, and a lot fewer -2s, right? He makes so many mistakes that turn into like that impact both ends of the court. Like we were talking about the block layup that then ends up as a foul on the other end. He needs to just make simple plays. Just don't try to do too much, and it's just not. He had a really good shift. It must have been the Gonzaga game on defense, and he didn't force anything on offense. That's what he needs to start to build his foundation around, and then the rest of it will all come.
Yeah, I would like to see him go on the court right now and say, I'm going to stay in front of my man, I'm going to block shots, and I'm going to get rebounds. That's it.
And I'm going to make the easy pass.
Right.
And sometimes he does that. Sometimes he tries to do everything else, and it gets a little dicey for him.
Yeah, and, I'll be curious to see. This is kind of one of those really interesting Juwan Howard things, Because John Beilein right now would not be playing Brandon Johns more than 3 minutes a game.
Yeah, he also
it would just be over. Because that's how John operated. It would be his 6-7 guys that he trusts, and Johns would be done for the year, basically. But, I want to see how Juwan handles this. He gave him 15 minutes last night.
He also played more minutes because what we were talking about with DeJulius. Where if you're not playing the 2 guards and you need to put Franz or Livers on the bench, you're going Johns then if you're not going to go with all 3-point guards. So it does show that Howard is willing to kind of shift his rotation based on matchups. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure Johns really did anything that is going to get him a lot more time moving forward. Going to be a lot of talk about guys want the light bulb to go on in this podcast. I feel like between these two teams and their benches right now.
Yeah, and ideally for a guy like Johns, like you want to talk about Franz having an opportunity to go play some bye games, like you could if you could get Johns into a low mid-major game and have him dominate and feel good about himself and things like that, but instead coming off of this, Michigan gets Iowa, Illinois, Oregon.
It's a hell of a stretch.
It's a monster stretch, man. Yes.
It's a hell of a
Iowa
stretch.
State, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Louisville, Iowa, Illinois, Oregon.
Yeah.
And then 2 bye games, and you come back and you play at Michigan State. Whew. How about it?
Welcome to college basketball, Colin Howard.
And then Purdue at home. But
it's really interesting, really for both these teams to go into Big Ten play coming off of this challenge and just kind of where they're all at. Like losing at Louisville, that's like a fine loss, right? Like no one's going to hold that against you. Now you have conference games, and it's a real thing.
And it's kind of is it Tuesday, Friday, kind of a tight turnaround? A little bit.
It's not.
After the physicality of this game, right? Trip to Maui, physicality of this game.
Bahamas.
Whatever.
How can you not figure this out? You were in Maui and can't even remember what you did there, who you saw. I don't understand.
Whatever, man.
It's a lot. I don't think that playing at home, I think, is probably a better spot.
Well, certainly.
Whereas, like, I was on the same turnaround and was at Syracuse last night. So, that's...
And after playing that defense, it's going to be Christmas morning to go play Iowa at home.
Is it ever not?
What time are we on?
We're at about 26 minutes.
You want to hop over?
Yeah, we can hop over. You have anything else on Michigan?
I don't think so. I mean...
Look, what's your level, like your high level of... Would you say there's concerns? Would you say it's just
every team has some concerns. Like, is there concerns?
Is it like a flaw on the Death Star? Or is it...
No, I mean... My thing would be, coming into last night, that I think that Michigan's one of the 5 best teams in college basketball? No. Do I think what I've seen so far proves to me that Michigan's probably one of the 15 to 20 best teams in college basketball? Absolutely. Top 3 team in the Big Ten? Could certainly be. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, the one thing I would add, Iowa State, North Carolina, Gonzaga, a lot of those teams were kind of in transition. New guys in the rotation, some youth.
Gonzaga banged up on a night day turnaround.
Louisville has due to have been in these kind of games and has experience in a way. They're not going to get kind of experience punked like Michigan did to some of those teams down in the Bahamas. So that plays a part, I would say, also.
Yeah.
All right, Michigan State, Duke.
So we sat in the lobby of Dylan's hotel this morning, both of us laptops out.
Grinding some Synergy film.
With the coffee, watching some Michigan State Duke film, looking at box scores, all ugly. Nothing got prettier from last night to our morning work here. Duke just punked them, man. In every capacity. I think you said it best that, first and foremost, Duke's 2 best players outplayed Michigan State's 3 best players.
Ooh.
Yeah. How about that?
Vernon Carey showing that he could have looked pretty good in the Breslin Center. He's coming on really strong and
a bad dude.
Dominated that game, really. The first thing that jumped out when I just look at all my stats and everything from this game is that Michigan State kind of got beat from the inside out. Duke was 21 of 29 and 72% at the basket. Michigan State was 22 of 38. That's only 58%.
Right. That's
a gap that is going to be tough to overcome. When you're getting inside but you're not finishing, it's going to be hard to win, especially at home when you get outplayed in the paint.
I thought Michigan State looked slow, unathletic. They were dominated at the rim. Duke's length killed them. And Michigan State's three-point shooting is more and more becoming an issue. Shooting 32% or 33% on the year. Not going to get it done for a team that likes to live on 3-point shooting. Thomas has never been shy about wanting to get shots up. But they are not getting. No one is getting it done. And the more and more those shots do not fall, the easier and easier it becomes to defend Michigan State. If you watch a lot of these, the ball screens that they'll run for Cassius Winston, there's very little reason to defend that man if he's popping out. Whether it's Tillman, whether it's Bingham, whether it's Hall, even though what Hall did to Seton Hall, that's great. But I'll still give Michigan State those shots all night long. And so as long as you can defend Cassius Winston with two guys, Michigan State can look pretty rough.
Yeah, the tag man on all the ball screens can really dig in and take away the roll because you're not worried about Rocket Watts on a kick out or Aaron Henry on a kick out, which is really what made Michigan State so great last year is that every single spot, the guy who was standing there could hit a three off the catch.
Right.
So you could not guard Cassius Winston. You would need to really stay home all over the place.
And that's where suddenly all these lanes opened up, right? For Cassius Winston to drive or for Aaron Henry to be a slasher. Mm-hmm. So you had all this spacing. Now, the more these shots miss, the more it looks like Michigan State starts playing offense in a living room. Like just kind of just crowded, tight, gets really hard to play that way. Now, Duke was awesome, and it's worth talking about like how good Duke was in that game. They were really good, and Michigan State just was not. You had a great stat from Bart Torvik on Michigan State's defense. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, so Bart Torvik you can do essentially rankings without any preseason projections included, kind of just a gauge of how well a team's played. Michigan State's defense is currently ranked 102nd in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, which Duke scored 1.15 points per possession, which is a lot to give up at home, really against anyone. And I don't know how concerned should people be about Michigan State's defense right now, given really that stat.
Teams are getting lots of twos against Michigan State right now. Their interior defense is a bit of a mess, and a lot of it is, I think, their ball screen defense. That there is a lot of action going to the basket for baskets that are fairly easy by Michigan State standards. Here's some numbers. These are 2-point baskets by Michigan State opponents.
Okay.
Kentucky, 17 for 30. Binghamton, 31 for 49. Virginia Tech, 16 for 36. Georgia, even on that Edwards game, they went 24 for 46. UCLA was 15 for 31. Duke last night, 24 for 46. All these teams are at 45, 55, 60% on their twos. That's a good way of playing basketball. The only team that didn't do it were your boys at Seton Hall because they were very busy doing other nonsense. But what do you see there? Like, what's kind of...
Did we talk about Miles Powell being named to the All Battle for Atlantis team before he played his third game on the podcast?
I don't think we have.
That's the most Seton Hall thing I've ever heard. Unbelievable. And he played well in the final game, but come on, people. Anyways,
the consolation games in these things are the best.
Michigan State's defense, giving up 56% at the rim, which kind of jives with what you're saying.
Yep.
It's about average overall, but a team like Michigan State, you'd want to be, I think, in the 40s in terms of your interior defense. And I do think it stems from... It's not that teams are just going in there and punching Michigan State in the mouth and scoring through them, although that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But defensive breakdowns lead to layups. So if you're giving up a lot of layups, it means that maybe your ball screen coverages aren't quite as dialed in. It means that you have some inexperience at spots, and you're just not quite as solid across the board defensively.
This is interesting. So I just realized I read the wrong 2-point percentage lines. I was reading Michigan State's, but the reality is they're almost identical in a lot of these games. That their opponents are damn near exactly what Michigan State's doing on twos. I'm not going to reread all these and correct them, but
Michigan State's ball screen coverage.
I would say we would edit this out, but we know that that's not going to happen.
49th percentile right now, and 8th percentile guarding the ball screen handler one-on-one. Those are not great numbers, and it really shows that for the inability. We forget how good Matt McQuaid was defensively. Last year, he was a guy who you would put on the other team's best offensive player, and he would be in his jersey, flopping, doing everything to make life miserable for him. Who's that guy in Michigan State right now?
Yeah, it's not a thing.
It's not a thing. And that's a big issue. Trey Jones played fantastic and did what he wanted, basically, right? He had double-digit assists, I think, last night. Like, I don't know that last year's Michigan State team would have allowed. What did he do the year before? Probably not nearly as comfortable of a game, right?
No, they have a lot to figure out, and you can go through and dissect everyone individually defensively at this point. You know, we were talking about Marcus Bingham earlier, and you look at his stat line, and you're like, man, you know, what a productive night. But it's like, for every stat that is in that box score, I'd like to see what was given up on the other end. Like, he is just lost in ball screen defense. He just gets stuck in the middle every time, and either his man is scoring or the guy that he's supposed to be picking up is scoring. It's hard to watch at times, and he's not the only one. And I'm not sure what right now, like, the clear-cut solution is, because, you know, Aaron Henry's everyone's favorite whipping boy right now, but, like, the defensive issue is team-wide. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no just, I'm going to blame this over here. I'm going to point over here. It's their fault, right? Like, that's not it. You know, and Xavier Tillman, even when he does struggle, the second that he leaves the floor, they are quite susceptible to just getting dogged in the middle. And it's not a coincidence that he only played 10 first-half minutes last night, had 2 fouls, and Duke dominated on the back half of the first half.
Yeah, Tillman is sort of like Teskey for Michigan State, where if you don't have him, things go south. Here's the Hoop Lens stats. These are always fun. So the on-off for Xavier Tillman. When he's on the court, Michigan State's offense goes from 0.96 points per possession without him to 1.08 points per possession with him. Mm-hmm. On defense, they give up 1.02 points per trip when he's on the bench, 0.81 when he's on the court.
I mean, that's huge.
So that's over 20 points per 100 possessions. That's a massive difference. Yeah. Really, like, field goal percentages all skyrocket. Everything changes about what Michigan State is, and that's a third of the possessions he's been on the bench. That's when the defense is struggling. And
the second he checks out, you guys have to. That's something to start watching. What the opposing bench is doing the second Xavier Tillman walks to the sideline, because it's just the door's open, you know. So let's take advantage, because those are the times to go on your runs.
Do we want to talk about Aaron Henry?
We have to talk about Aaron Henry. My goodness. I mean, for a guy who has all this talent, I'm not understanding. And look, I understand how things go with Tom Izzo and Michigan State. But this whole, like, let's just dog Aaron Henry until he somehow figures it out, I'm not understanding this. I think it's at the point where the script probably needs to flip internally and externally and how people are thinking and talking about Aaron Henry. I've never seen a guy who needs more positive reinforcement and is getting none. So this dude needs to get up off the mat, and everyone seems to only wanting to be pushing him down further, and I'm not understanding it.
I feel like that is the Michigan State version of positive reinforcement, though, right? Like, we've seen this script before.
Right. And I'm sure when he looks like an All-American in February, everyone's going to be like, see?
Those features are going to be, they're going to be loving it in a 5-game winning streak in February, and everything's going to be... Mm-hmm. It's... like, his numbers are not all that bad.
No.
Right? So... And obviously, like, your numbers aren't everything. It's more that he's not this guy that everyone wanted him to become.
Right.
And for him to take 2 shots in an entire game at home against Duke, like, that's not what you want.
But, like, what kind of player doesn't shoot?
One without confidence.
One without confidence. One that is getting the shit kicked out of him by everyone. I don't know what to make it, because when I saw him in Maui, I thought he was, like, ready to turn the corner. He looked awesome in the second half, I think, of the Virginia Tech game. He looked good against Georgia. He gets benched against UCLA, and then is a non-factor against Duke.
Yeah, if you look at his...
is in less than 10 days this has all happened.
If you look at his cumulative stats in Maui, you would think he had a great tournament.
Yeah.
But all the stories out of Maui were Aaron Henry benched, Aaron Henry is not what we want, Aaron Henry is this. So it kind of makes sense that he would then lay an egg.
And he's coming back from 2 sprained ankles. Like, he did miss a game before Maui. I'm not understanding this.
I don't know.
And I mean, the big thing that's pissing Izzo and the staff off is that he's, not a elite level lockdown defender yet. He's not rebounding the ball the way that they want. How did he do on the boards last night? No offensive rebounds, 2 defensive rebounds. I mean, yeah, the offensive rebound numbers are still probably the most perplexing thing about Henry. And, like, I think internally the talking point on him is that he doesn't know the difference between playing his version of playing hard and what's really playing hard. I think it's one of those narrative things that people like to use, and, like, how real is that? I'm sure Aaron Henry thinks he's playing his ass off. But, like, what their version of playing your ass off means, I have no idea. Like, how far that gap is would be an interesting question. But the rebound, he should be a better rebounder, no doubt.
Can he be a guy that uses 20-something% of offensive possessions? Because right now he hasn't been able to break through into that higher usage.
Yeah,
he's stuck around 16-17%, which is really the same place he was last year.
Yeah, because, like, him driving the ball, like, to go score it, is a, like, get downhill, 3-dribble finish. Not a put it on the deck, get a guy on skates, right? Like, he's not a ball handler like that. So, like, how much... Like, he needs leverage coming off of a screen, right? Like, not being put into, like, a position of creativity. So, like, you could probably answer that better in terms of, like, if that's your skill set, what does that equate to in terms of a percentage of offense that could be used? I don't know that.
Yeah, we look at a guy like Rocket Watts, and we can make fun of all of his inefficient shooting numbers early, right. But he's a guy who you put him on the court with 9 other guys, and he's using at least 20-something% of possessions, no matter what. And he's doing that this year too, right? It's just kind of natural and intuitive. Henry, I don't think, is naturally that guy, which makes it harder to be sort of a breakout guy. Livers is almost the same way, where he's stuck in the teens in usage, and getting up to that 20% takes something serious, right? Really just confidence and aggressiveness on offense in terms of, I'm going to be a playmaker, not just make the plays that come to me.
Yeah.
And it's hard with a guy like Winston or Simpson dominating the ball for those guys to grow into that role. But I just wonder, like, if he's going to really be this breakout star and this future pro, he's going to need to get some of that. Just be a little more aggressive, look for his offense. And I wonder if that could help him kind of come along, if he can get that going over the next month or so.
Right. And, like, I'm starting to wonder, personality-wise, how that happens when surrounded by so much negativity. And I mean from everyone. That's not just Izzo. I mean, fans, the questions he's getting. I read Graham's thing today, and he didn't talk after the game, which is extremely unlike Aaron Henry. I mean, he's been, after bad performances, he's been one of the most open, honest, raw guys, especially as an underclassman that I've dealt with. And he just, I guess, no-showed after the game. And
And Michigan State isn't losing these games because of it. It's not like
I totally agree.
He's not winning the games, maybe we can say. But he played his ass off against Virginia Tech. He made a ton of great plays. I mean, it's just a little harsh to...
Yeah. Like, the real reason that they're losing these games is because their defense isn't as good as it should be and because they're not getting enough production out of their ball screens.
And maybe
that's why they're
5-3 comes down to things they're wanting Henry to do. Maybe they want Henry to be that Matt McQuaid shutdown guy, and he's not doing it. So I can see all that, but it's not like his taking 2 shots. They didn't lose. I mean, he didn't go win the game, but it's not like he fired up 25 shots and made 2. I mean, that's how you lose a game.
Right.
It's like this weird in between where he's not what everyone wants him to be.
Right, and that's the thing is like he's always going to be an easy scapegoat because it's if he were a star, then they'd be winning these games. I was like, well, yeah, I guess you could make that case, but that's kind of just an easy out, no?
Yeah, it's hard though because at the same time, if you say what could change for Michigan State in the next 2 months, Aaron Henry becomes a star.
Aaron a rock star? Maybe.
No, but I would say the fact that they're struggling on defense, I would bet a lot of money on Izzo to get that fixed.
No doubt.
Right? Like, that's not going to be a problem by the end of the year. Maybe they won't be the best defense
they might not
ever,
be top 10,
but they're not going to have the same kind of breakdowns that they're having now. Those are things that are going to get ironed out and fixed, right? They are playing a lot of new players, 276 in experience, guys in key spots that just didn't see the floor. It's the same as Michigan. Guys that didn't see the floor last year for their defensive mistakes are now having to play through those, and that's going to I mean, that's just part of the growth process for teams early in the season.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely agree with you. I mean, you'll start to see... I would say you'd start to see improvements like coming up quickly, but then it's also this is really their first chance that they get to work on themselves. I think it's been a heavy run. Obviously, all the off the court stuff, but then you open in New York, and then you have a true road game at Seton Hall. You go on and I wrote it in a story I ran earlier this week that I thought the trip to Maui would kind of be maybe like a reset, right? Get everyone out, go away, you get that isolation of what these kind of tournaments give you. In reality, it was the exact opposite.
It was a drain.
It was the last thing that they needed to do. So I think drain. I think is a perfect word. This team looks completely drained. Like they looked flat-footed last night. They did not look. They just didn't have that kind of crank of.
Also, we talked about Michigan and scheduling laws. Maui to the Big Ten ACC Challenge is a really hard turn. Also, we when we were down there with Michigan, was that 3 years ago? Beeline was completely losing his mind over how to schedule travel back, and he was like putting guys on different planes, on different schedules. It's like a real thing, and that jet lag is a lot. And it's obviously it's more time in between, but that's an intense travel. I think Michigan got killed by UNC that year. Was that right after that game?
That sounds right. Yeah.
And they just looked flat-footed.
That's
I mean,
right.
so that is a real thing that you need to consider with this Michigan State performance too.
That's a good
Duke
point.
was in New York, played a couple games, was back home. I mean, because that Michigan went and lost by 15 at UNC. Actually, Michigan played a weekend game before that, but still, that is a tough spot. And we love these preseason tournaments and these challenges, but they do catch up to you, especially with conference games around the corner, right? I mean, it's a lot at this time in the schedule for especially a guy like Izzo, who's not like the way he would build his schedule when he had complete control of it. You would probably manage this time a lot differently in terms of building your team up and this and that.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck in all these conference mandated things, and it's a lot harder.
But they get there's a window here. I feel like for them to address.
We'll call it the Rutgers window.
The Rutgers window. That's right. They today is Wednesday, right? They're I imagine they have a full day off today, or maybe not. I mean, Izzo might just be freaking ready to burn the building down and tell everyone to get their asses back in there at 6 a.m. for all I know. But Rutgers on Sunday at home, and then a week.
I don't understand why everyone else plays 2 Big Ten games, and Michigan State's are spread out by 10 days.
10 days? I have no idea. They're spread out by 10 days. They have a game against Oakland in the middle. In Detroit, I'm sure that'll be another kind of emotional experience for Cassius Winston to play in Detroit. And then a road trip to Northwestern. Your boys showing some life.
Huskers
representing the Big Ten. How about that?
Represent the cellar. So, and then what? Eastern, Western.
Right.
That is a. And then, wait, no, I'm looking. That's right.
That's right.
Okay.
Rutgers, Oakland, Northwestern, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, and then back to Big Ten.
So this is where you build up Aaron Henry.
Yes.
Where you build up Rocket Watts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, that's what you need to figure. Those are the
after
two
the
guys.
road trip to Northwestern. It's 5 straight home games. They are home from December 18 through January 12th. Like, if Michigan State's going to figure it out and become the team that I think we all thought, maybe still think that they are, they have a chance here to find it. This was interesting. So, someone I was doing a live chat for The Athletic yesterday, and someone asked, like, if Michigan State loses tonight, what does it mean, kind of big picture for team? And I thought about it, like, all right, so assume they finish non-conference without any more losses, and let's say they go 15-5 in Big Ten. Their only notable non-conference win will be at Seton Hall. Like, is a 1 seed still in play in that scenario? I texted Lenardi and asked him, because I don't know, and his theory was yes, it would still be in play, probably because the other potential ones, like, are there any teams that are going 18-2 in their leagues, 17-3 in their leagues? Like, it might be a jumbled mess of that 7 through 9 top teams in the country, of, like, who are your clear ones.
Yeah,
so, like, point being, in his opinion, like, a 1 seed, 2 seed still possibly there.
Yeah, especially if you like do the double. If you win the Big Ten and the Big Ten tournament,
sure.
You're being a lot of those conversations. I think that the Big Ten is, it's fair to say, a lot more open than we might have guessed a month ago.
I definitely
right. I
definitely
think
agree.
I don't know. Would Michigan State still be the favorite to win the Big Ten?
I would like to see Ohio State play North Carolina tonight.
Yeah, I would say that there's a chance that those are close to even odds right now. Right? I mean,
right now you could make the case that you could throw all 4, Michigan, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan State, throw them in a hat right now.
And we were talking about how many games does Michigan State win the Big Ten by? Is there another team that can contend?
Right.
Those other schools are now all in the conversation for 1 seeds if they can win the double, right? I mean,
definitely.
A lot of basketball to be played, but it's shaping up to be a lot better league race than we might have assumed. And those narratives will all change probably completely after this weekend when we see a few conference games and whatever else. But it just speaks to where, like, Michigan State is still in play for a 1, but it's just the path to get there seems a lot less likely. But then again, if you look down their KenPom projection, still it's 22-9, 14-6 in the league. Right? There's only a couple games that they're actually picked to lose.
I mean, if you're Michigan State, I mean, Izzo's done it so many times. Like, does it matter if they go, 13-7 and are a 7 seed? Well, just go. They can still do what they did in 2015, right? It was a year I think they had 4 non-conference losses, including the Texas Southern, and then went like 12-6 in the league, 7 seed, went to the Final Four. That's always on the table too. But
how vulnerable do you think this team is? So, like, I don't really know what to make of the Virginia Tech game, especially being in Maui.
I don't really put too much weight on it.
Is this team, like, do you see them routing teams like Oakland, Eastern, Western, or do you see them vulnerable to maybe like a close game against Rutgers at home or at Northwestern?
They're always, even when they're good, they're vulnerable to close games versus Rutgers for some reason. I have no idea. So I'll just go ahead.
You know what I'm saying though?
No, I could see I could see one of those games being very uncomfortable because it's just they are uncomfortable right now. So yeah, could a game like Oakland go down to the wire in Detroit? Sure, maybe. I don't see them being this okay, we're just going to turn it on right now and everything's all good. I haven't seen them play a comfortable, confident basketball game yet.
Yeah, unless you count Binghamton or Charleston Southern. But
right,
that Seton Hall win, huge.
Yes.
See, the non-conference resume would be a mess without that win.
Yeah.
And we all know I'm not a big Seton Hall guy, but that's a road win that really will prop the whole thing up. Really, it reminds me a lot of the year Michigan went to Maui, and they ended up winning that game at Texas, which kind of saved the whole non-conference because they had lost LSU, played Chaminade, didn't do anything, and then had just enough in the non-conference, and then the season kind of ended. They turned everything around and ended up very good and got a high seed and everything, and no one really cared what happened in Maui. There's so much more opportunity to just erase what happened in November. Right? November can be a nice boost for you, but it's not going to kill your season.
Yeah.
In terms of your resume and whatever else. I think we get net ratings soon, which should be a fun little early thought experiment.
Yeah. When do the preseason preseason numbers go out of KenPom?
I'm not sure. I think probably January or thereabouts. I think that a lot of people get frustrated with.
When does Palgus thing go up? Because his doesn't come out until. I think he holds back until the numbers make sense, basically.
Yeah, which
That'd be interesting to see, though.
Yeah, because last year the net came out and there was random teams that were ranked way high because it was too early and there's no priors in the net. But that should just at least give us a gauge of where some of these teams' resumes are. Any other big thoughts on Michigan State at this point?
No, I mean, I like I said, I kind of think they have that trip to Northwestern, but I think it's going to be good for them to be home for a little bit. We talked about it on this podcast, and I wrote about it this week, but it's also, the whole, we can talk about it as much as we want, but the elephant in the room is still, where's Cassius Winston and how feasible is it for him to be playing and all this stuff with all this, where's his head at, and all, it's just an impossible situation, and it's, I think, exhausting for everyone there, and it's really, really difficult. So maybe some time here helps, but Izzo made the point the other day, I think at his press conference, I think he said it, Garland said it to me in the parking lot of Maui, but okay, Christmas season, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You don't know. So I don't know. It's just unlike anything that anyone's ever been around. So they're complicated, and it's one of the points I made in that story was it's hard to know where's the real, what do you really scrutinize about Michigan State right now, because what's within their control and what is out of their control, that's hard. That's been, as just someone following the team, that's really been kind of a moving target for me. I don't know what to make of it sometimes.
Yeah. It's hard. And think about this, just about where Michigan State's season is at. Last year, around this time, going into Big Ten games, 5-2, just lost at Louisville, lost to Kansas in the Champions Classic. It's not like there were rosy feelings for a season that ended out about as good as possible, right?
I remember being here.
Yeah,
that was the game where Josh Langford's throwing the ball to the wrong team. Foster Lawyer missed huge free throw, and it was, oh my God, what is this team? Blah, 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 blah. And,
they got to play Rutgers.
Great.
Got back on track.
They got that Rutgers juice.
Won 13 games in a row. Started 9-0 in the Big Ten. I mean, it can all change so quick, right? And it shows that everything that happens in November just sets the table.
Totally.
And so don't overreact to the fact that... And it's really hard to find yourself against Duke.
You're right.
Right, like, it's not like you're like...
Right, a Duke team that was still like, we've been a laughing stock for a week, right? Mm-hmm. Enough of this bullshit. We're going to go punch these guys in the face, and, we'll never hear of Stephen F. Austin again. Like, I would imagine some of that probably was playing a part in that game. At the same time, they were without Cassius Stanley,
But it's just trying to show how long there is to go in the season and how quickly we forget where some of these things stand at different points in the year, right? Nothing's ever as good or bad as it seems.
Shit, at this time last year, they were still trying. Josh Langford was still playing. Nick Ward was still the second option on the team. The team went to the Final Four with Langford in street clothes and Ward playing 15 minutes a night.
Kyle Lawrence played 41 minutes at Louisville last year.
Wow. So,
that's where we're at.
That's where it is. That is the state of the podcast of the Double Beat. When will we be recording again, Dylan? Early next week?
Oh, yeah. We'll do.
Maybe do a little ACC Big Ten talk. We haven't even gotten into.
Yeah, and we got conference games this weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll try to do like a Monday one. Maybe hit on some Big Ten teams.
I like that. Talk some Big Ten hoops. Talk some Michigan State, where they come out of it. Are you expecting win-win for the boys? Michigan over Iowa, Michigan State over Rutgers this weekend?
I think that's probably right. I mean...
Who's more susceptible, because they're both at home, against teams that they'll be favored by...
Iowa's not Rutgers, so Michigan's more susceptible.
Okay. You're really salty on Rutgers.
I'm just saying, Iowa's coming off a road win at Syracuse.
Rutgers ain't terrible. They lost to Pitt, which is terrible, but what's their best win right now? UMass. They took down a mighty A-10 program, It's
December 14th will be Rutgers' win of the season.
You got them taking a big W in the Battle of New Jersey against Seton Hall?
Correct.
Okay.
Rutgers is going to win New Jersey.
All right.
But I do not think Rutgers is going to win at Michigan State on Sunday.
Fair. I'll take Michigan State by 15. I'll take Michigan by 9.
Sounds about right.
Okay, very good. We'll leave it at that. We'll get back to you guys next week. Make sure you subscribe to UM Hoops, subscribe to The Athletic. Leave us a rating or a review on iTunes. That helps immensely, apparently. And I guess that does it. Be sure to tip your bartenders and servers, everyone. Good night.